Did you know that a child's brain doubles in size in the first 2 years of life? It's actually 80% of neurological development happens in the first 2 years of life. And so it's vitally important that we're addressing the nervous system and supporting your kiddos, especially in this window. Now, it's pretty wild, and then it continues to have a rapid amount of growth and development between 3 and 7 years of life. So, making sure that the nervous system is functioning optimally during this time period can be very impactful on your overall child's health. So, how do we notice or how do we assess how your child's nervous system is doing? Well, who is this made for? This is made for parents who are looking for an objective test that will show them what's going on with their child's nervous system. Oftentimes, the nervous system is one of the things that, we have MRIs, we have X-rays, and we have all these different scans, except for none of them actually show us functionally what's happening. They look at a snapshot or a picture on structurally what's happening instead of functionally what's happening. So to understand how we can assess the nervous system, we'll dive into a little bit more about what the nervous system is. And the nervous system is a two-way street. The nervous system is the signals our brain sends to our body through our brain, our brainstem, our spinal cord, and then the spinal nerves. And so the brain is constantly sending signals to the body. It tells the heart to keep beating, it tells the lungs to breathe, it tells our muscles to move. It's constantly sending these signals. And there are two types of signals it sends. And so the first type of signals that it sends are sensory signals. Now, sensory signals are the external environment that our body is perceiving. And so when we even just touch our hand, that's a sensory signal that's going through the nerves up to the brain, sending the signal of touch. And so that's a signal that's going up to our brain. And so that's called an afferent signal, or the signals that are going to our brain. The other signals that we have is we have motor signals. And motor signals are a type of efferent signals, otherwise known as exit signals, signals that go from our brain. And that can be motor control, it can be, the lungs breathing, heart beating, etc., or moving our arm. And so that's when our brain says to our finger to move, and our finger moves. And so that is a motor signal, or a signal that our brain sends upwards. And so what we know is there's this intricate balance of signals that come into our brain, and then our brain sending signals back out. In chiropractic, there's a safety pin analogy, essentially that it continues, the cycle is what goes in and then it comes out. And if the safety pin is unclasped, it means there's a disruption or an interference somewhere in this cycle of what's going in and what's going out. And so that's what we're focusing on. And we're focusing on a function. We want to look at what's going in and we want to look at what's going out. And so we look at the nervous system to determine essentially how much noise is going in, to then also focus on how the body can perceive what's going out. So what happens is in an EMG scan, which is one of the scans we're going to look at, we can look and see how much the nervous system is in this stress response, or essentially how much noise is going on the what's going in. And when there's a lot of noise what's going in, and then a lot of noise through a lot of muscle tension, so it's sending a lot out where we have a high amount of tone, a neurological tone, then there can be disruptions or different things that can pop up from a symptoms perspective, such as emotional dysregulation, difficulty with behavior, or with learning, or with memory, or even just balance and coordination, which is proprioception. So this is an example of that kind of scan on how we look into seeing what's going on when it comes to a nervous system perspective, not just a structural perspective. So this is an EMG scan, and it's looking at the amount of energy our body is using to maintain posture. Now we have three kinds of kiddos, or types of kiddos, that we expect to see. The first type of kiddo is considered a raging bull, and that's when we see high amounts of energy, where we see this total number or total energy index on the like kind of right below me and to the left. We have a total energy index on this one, it's 173.9. Now, when that number is really high, I'm talking 400 upwards north of 350. That's saying there's a lot of energy or there's a lot of noise or a lot of signals. And when that happens, it can create a lot of confusion in the body because the body is not sure. It's trying to process different things when there's a lot of noise internally and a lot of noise externally. There's just a lot of confusion in the system. And when I say confusion, we can see the confusion in the pattern and symmetry numbers that are next to the total energy index. And so the pattern and symmetry in numbers are how balanced is the amount of energy or the amount of tension throughout the body, and then how balanced is it side to side. Especially when we see a low symmetry number or a low amount of balance side to side, we can see that correlate with more of the balance and coordination, etc., where we can really see this side dominance. And so when we're seeing how organized things are, it can play a big role into see how much noise is going on. So we have a kiddo and say they are also hyperactive, they have a difficult time focusing, difficult time with memory, difficult time taking directions. Oftentimes this is a noise issue where there's so much going in and it's difficult to process and properly focus on each individual thing. There's just so much coming in that their brain is overwhelmed by the amount of noise. And that's also a sensory processing signal as well, where it's just that everything is heightened and they're constantly taking in so much noise that when it comes to a function perspective on, okay, we're going in, the amount of what's kicking in, there's confusion. And so it's not processing out. And so there's too much going in, too much noise that the brain is in overwhelm or in this sympathetic dominance or this high stress that then when we're looking for the memory or behavior or being able to sit still or being able to focus, etc., there's just too much noise. And so by decreasing this total energy index or the amount of noise in the system, we can make it so that process is there's less noise going in and therefore we're really able to focus on what's going out. Now, the opposite side, so that's when we see a kiddo that has high amounts of stress, high amounts of energy. Now, the opposite would be what's called a drunken bull or what's essentially burnout. And so, after a while of being in the raging bull phase, or after a while of being overstimulated, our body then goes fight, flight, or freeze. And so then when we have the opposite side of the spectrum, where we have an underactive scan, or we have exhaustion in the system, where the system has been going at such a high rate for so long that then it becomes exhausted. And that can be, especially in kiddos struggling with motor milestones and things like that, that can be a position where there's so much exhaustion, for example, in a kiddo that has a lot of tension in their neck and their shoulders, probably had torticollis, maybe had a difficult birth, etc., and now is struggling with low tone in their core. It's to a point where there was so much tension in a different area that the body is actually now exhausted. And so when we want to bring the core online, there's too much exhaustion in the system. And so we actually want to wake up the core, and we can do that by decreasing tension in other places and bringing more balance to the system. So those would be a couple of options on some of the different things we could see on this scan. And that all comes back to this total energy index number. Is it too high or is it too low? And is there balance in the pattern and in the symmetry? In adults, we'd like to see pattern and symmetry be above 80. In kiddos, we really try to get it above 60. And so we really want to see that we're seeing balance throughout the system. We see balance side to side, and there's not too much stimulation where there's not too much noise so that they can properly focus on growth, learning, development, etc., especially in that time period where neurological development is so important. So, if you're interested to see how your kiddo is functioning, not just structurally what's going on with your child, but to see how your child is functioning, especially from a nervous system perspective, then you can go ahead and bring your kiddos in. We can get them scanned. We can get you scanned, especially as parents. Staying regulated is very important for kiddos as well. And we can see how well your body is balanced, how much energy is your body is using to maintain posture, etc., and take a deep dive into really unlocking your nervous system for optimal health. So I look forward to seeing you. If you ever have had a scan like this done before, comment below and tell me your aha moment when you saw your scans. Look forward to seeing you soon.